everything's okay, we'll get started. Great. Thank you for coming. We have a few things to get through tonight. We said we were going to go around last time, mostly some financial modeling and more importantly, timetables. I want to make sure everybody understands where we're at in terms of time and things. So just as a quick reminder, everything's posted on the website. It's the same spot, it's the same slide we always have. If anybody wants the information that we've gone over, and I know Josh, the communication person for the district, has been sending out the information as well, plus one-page summaries. So we've been, all of that work has been going out, and everything that we've done is posted up on the website. So just real quick, we determined in January, we agreed that there was no parcel that would handle the school site, and that hasn't changed. We're going to continue planning for the renovations in the addition here, which is what we'll discuss tonight. The transportation facility and the athletic fields on a different parcel. We had a few that people suggested they found. We're going to talk tonight about, there's a parcel on Fox Run that might have legs. So we want to talk about that one tonight. Tom, I sent you a note earlier. The Westport parcel won't fit the garage and the fields. And there was another one that was suggested that isn't for sale, so we're not going to chase that yet until we exhaust some of the other options. But I really want to delineate. Is calendar next? Yeah, that's agenda. When we talk about calendar, don't want to muddle the field and the transportation, kind of, we closed out in January, the field and the transportation conversation with the necessity to get the clock moving on the work here. So we'll talk about everything we have in motion, because that's the first recommendations we really need to get through. And then we'll look at that parcel. Challenger and Mike, BCA, did a quick review of that parcel, and we can talk about that Fox Run piece when we get to the end. We really want to work towards a recommendation to the board sooner than later. And I just want to remind everybody, the recommendations are holistic, and a lot of these things we've already determined, but we've already made decisions on. About keeping everything together. We're not going to put everything late for you. And these things we've already talked about and decided. Recommendations to the board can't be granular because we're not at that place. So we want to stay in a holistic sense when we're thinking about things, because the timeline is getting really tight, which I'll speak to right now. If we can make some final recommendations, then we assume that the board would look favorably upon by April, maybe March, maybe by April. We'll see how things go tonight. We can get a submission in the state ed in June. They already told us at least 6 months for a preliminary review. We talked about that last time, we confirmed a lot of that stuff. Is it 5, maybe, between November and December is going to split hairs. So throughout that time, the architects will do all the work between June and November, so we can get the final approval, the final MCAs, all of the work the state ed needs to do. In a perfect world, we get done by next January. So it's the 6-month review of everything. Between June and November, the architects does all their work. We get the project in, we get everything on deck. We confirm the costs in January. We run the best financial projections we have then. And we get all the rest of the pieces in place with the notice and those kinds of things. That we vote in May when you do the budget vote. But if you're interested, I think we could probably push that up maybe a couple months, depending on how quick we can move in January. If you wanted to do maybe a vote in March, maybe do a vote in April, to do a vote in May is kind of silly. You vote in March and get it rolling. It does buy a couple months. Construction can start a little sooner. That's something for the district to decide. That's not our business. This is just laying on the timeline essentially. So what I did is we built it, the vote to May, because that's when it is. All our things equal, you're having a vote then. Does it pick up a couple months? Does the district want, if we can have it for March, does the district want to hold a vote then? That's their business. But the sooner that can move, and if it's favorable, the sooner the construction can start. So we get out past this, we're going to lose more time on the back end. And I think from what we have to talk about tonight, with the information, especially on the fiscal side, I think we can get our arms around where you want to be in terms of the big picture. So this calendar is important because the clock can't start until the board says we can start the clock and we get the submittals in and the rest of the details. cases. Okay? I mean, it's a long timeline, it is what it is. And we'll get to the construction timeline in a little bit. On the next slide, excuse me, but we have to phase that over time as well. So assuming in a perfect world, we vote May, construction starts fall of 27, it's gonna be all of 2.5 years. Again, instead of starting fall 27, if you vote earlier, we get out of the gate a little bit earlier, you can start summer 27, get foundations in and start doing some of that work and pick up a couple months of good weather, it's never a bad thing. But in a perfect world, it's still gonna be 2.5 years. And assuming all, again, the September of 30, open school opening kind of thing, where everything can be complete. So that backs up to, we're talking years, because that's how these things go, no matter how you slice the pie. So to get approvals, meaning to get a referendum passed, to get into the ground, and to get to completion, the further we back up the front end, the further you're going to be backing up the other end, obviously. Because of the nature of the work, it's going to be that long of a construction schedule, as we stand here now. Okay, so I want to make sure we're all on the same page, understanding the schedule constraints. Go ahead.
Joe, is your schedule based on the full referendum or the limited, or full renovation or limited?
Limited to a degree. Tyler, is there the bigger impact?
Because it's a renovation project, and in addition, we just have 12 to 16 months of design in there. That's that gap between the May 26th and the 2027 construction date. The SED review time for the preliminary review is really affected by the full renovation versus the limited renovations. It's still just waiting.
That's a really good point, right? The more they need to review, the longer that is. We were talking last week, we might get lucky. We've already talked to them, we told them to expect it, okay, great, we got it sent it. But if it's less of a, especially mechanical, it's more of a limited mechanical, and the architectural review will really be pretty much the same, because the addition's not changing. But the NDP review gets easier when the scope is smaller too.
Well, I'm sorry to hear, I don't have my hearing aid tonight. So was that limited rental or full rental?
I would say the May 26th to SED review in fall of, I'd say it's more on the limited side.
I would agree. Yeah.
Just, we don't know how long SED, so we have the 6 month of preliminary SED review, and then we do the design documents after a yes vote from the voters. Then we have like I said, 12 to 16 month period probably for design plus SED review. Right now, the times are low. In the fall, they tend to be a little bit higher. Right now, SED review for a project, I think engineering is 2 to 4 weeks and architectural is 10 weeks.
Yeah.
But in the fall, we see that creep all the way up to 26 weeks. That's when everybody tries to submit their projects. So we'd like to avoid that too. But I would say it's more on the limited side for the timeline.
Yeah.
But as we dive in, sorry, Joe, as we dive into the work, we might be able to adjust the schedule too.
When we first talked in September, speaking of fall, remember they were, to Taylor's point, they were on 6 to 7 months for review. And now they're turning to deal with the projects. Their staff doesn't change with, their staff doesn't, use the light as much as I can. The staffing never doesn't change with volume. That's always their problem, right? They got 2 architects, whether there's 2 projects or 200 projects, which always jams it up. But I think this is conservative. It's conservative enough up front to accommodate what needs to happen, and we can see if it can get tweaked as we get into it. But this is not a government schedule, by any means.
No.
Yeah. Okay, so that's calendar. Okay, let's talk money, which we said we were going to do. And I'm going to preface this, and I'm going to say it 10,000 times tonight. Based on the best information I have right now, I pulled numbers from the property tax report card that you submitted last year. I pulled the rest of the fiscal numbers from the website. We know something, we know your levy is 8.3 million. We know 1% on the levy is 12 cents on that per thousand. Like, there's some stuff we know, but no one has a crystal ball. Remember, we're not borrowing. And Maybe in a perfect world, the borrowing environment gets better when you have to finally issue the bonds for this thing, which could be good news for everybody. We all know that the rates right now are not favorable by any means. So you might get lucky on that, and by the time you end up going for the bonds, and then you'll save on capitalized interest, which always helps you. So again, I'm just saying, I got an asterisk with everything. 8 months from now, well, you said in February there's only going to be, and I'm telling you right now, I'm going to come right back to this is based on what we know now. We've got a budget vote in May, state aid's changing in terms of operating things. There's a million different things. This is based on what we know on the current fiscal conditions as I stand here right now. Okay, so the extensive model. Remember, that's the first one we talked about with more deliberate renovations. So I want to keep coming back to our conversation was always about dealing with this local share, dealing with what doesn't generate it, right? Because that's where it doesn't generate it, it's out of pocket, and that's where the real local hit comes from in terms of revenue, right? Not everything's aided, et cetera, et cetera. We've had these conversations for the past many months. So last time we scenarioed it out, how much can we maximize our aid and still be able to do? So this one is the extensive renovation model, which we talked about before. And I kind of clicker, but at the bottom, we track not aidable costs, right? So in that is everything above your MCA and what's not aidable against your ratio. Remember, you're not 90.1%, I think, so there's always 90.3. It's either or, 9.5%. It's never going to be aidable anyway. So you're not getting anything on that. And you don't get paid beyond your allowance, right? That was the big, where the big money came in, which I'll show you in a few slides on your first project. So the expensive renovations, which you're not getting aid on, is $16.4 million. And again, all in, that's a $45 million project. So when you look across, the addition 14.6, now it's a heavier addition. Remember, it had the cafeteria in there, it had other spaces and those things we talked about in our last meeting. Heavy renovations for $38 million total. On that addition, remember, you're only aided up to 9.8, right? So you've got 4.7 unaided, you got 9.6 unaided, and then the soft costs as well. So all of a sudden you end up with almost $16.5 million that's unaided. All right, so we're above on that. When you run the schedule, again, ignore the date. When we were talking about this, is borrowing starting 28? Does it start until it said? It doesn't matter. We'll pick the date, we'll extrapolate it out, right, under current conditions. Will you borrow in 28? I don't know. Will it be sooner? Depends on all these things we're talking about right now. But the reality is, it's still this is the same. The amortization doesn't change. So ultimately, that project is a 19.3%. I know it's very small, I apologize, but everything will be posted, the lower right hand corner here. 19.3% increase on the levy. On the levy. That's for the full renovations. The light renovations, you see that the construction on the addition comes down over $2 million. So it's still $3 million unaided there. There's actually a little bit more room left on the renovations, $300,000. Time you don't know the costs are going to be, et cetera, but didn't run it all the way up to the finish line. So a little bit left on the table there, which won't leave on the table when the time comes. There's only $150,000 in soft costs that aren't covered for the addition, and $414,000 that aren't covered for the renovation. So you're $3.7 million that's not aided. So again, it's $16.4 million heavy not aided versus $3.7 million not aided. So when you run that out, your increase on the levy is 5.66, 5.7. So you go from full renovation, 19% increase on the levy, to the light renovations, to 5.7, 5.66, 5.7% increase on the levy. Huge difference, obviously, right? Huge difference. So what does that look like? So the two categories we're talking about was unaided and percent on the levy. So The original referendum had about $25 million in unabated expenses. Our heavy rental model, which was 3 slides ago, has 16.4 million. The light rental has the 3.7 million. So right out of the gate, I mean, look at this first conversation you're having from your first vote, right? Huge difference. I mean, it's a different project too. Remember, the fields aren't in here either. Separate conversation. But when you look holistically at things, the work you've done over the past 6 months thinking about it differently is real money, right? And I hope everybody would agree with that. You know, scope is different, absolutely, but costs are different too, and that comes with changing scope. Go ahead.
Joe, just for my clarification, the limited reno is just taking care of everything in the BCS.
And a little bit more. They're gonna do all the BCS, all mechanicals, et cetera, and what's left, administration, design team will go room by room with targeted renovations based on interior condition.
It's also the BCS items that are sort of the must-dos. That it was $9 million that this building must-do BCS item, that's a lot of HVAC and the like. And then there was, I think the building itself had about, I don't remember between the two, 17 or 20 million total. That's a lot of like, just items that are existing non-conforming and the like. So it's the mandatory, you need to do this in order to maintain your building. Plus, again, like Joe said, an extra $4 or $5 million to upgrade some spaces.
It'll get the life cycle back, right? We're talking, we'll get your life cycle back, schedule, new mechanicals and those upgrades. We're okay, we got a new system, we need another 25 years out.
Yeah.
If it's maintained, et cetera, et cetera.
Roof.
Okay, you want to think of the things that are going to probably fail in the next 5 years.
And we're already, right? We already know, we're taking personal, right? So it's all of those things first, and then some facelifts. I mean, and tell us the full BCS list, which we talked about, you know, was every handicap door, it's every, right, it goes on and on and on and on once you get into the spaces, but it's really about the life of the building and the building systems and health and safety things first.
And Joe, what is the difference in the addition? What brings it down to 2 million?
We took out the bigger shared spaces, tell correct me if I'm wrong, cafeteria.
Yeah, I think it was a separate elementary cafeteria and gymnasium.
Yes.
Or, it was, we don't have the drawings on this slideshow, but it was 2 larger spaces that would be built underneath the gym, essentially.
Yeah, it's on the
Not underneath the
January.
gym, but below the gym on the plan.
We
Okay.
took it out, and those get aided at least too.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Aaron.
So how many rooms are we talking about now for the addition?
We're talking about the same schematic that we had in January with the classrooms, and I think it was 14 or 12.
Yeah,
I gotta go back.
It was the program needed for the elementary school plus all the special ed AIS rooms and the like. And we removed the, like I said, the gym and the cafeteria.
The classroom count hasn't changed since January.
Looks like 16 rooms.
I think it's 16 because it's PK of 5, which is 12 plus special ed. Don't quote me, we didn't bring the boards back again tonight, so, but it's all in the deck from January, we can look at the end too. So it's the academic part, we took away the ancillary spaces.
Joe, would this include redoing the existing cafeteria to make it work for the size of?
Oh, we had cafeteria rentals in there, right?
The cafeteria renovations are part of the, yeah, they would be part of the additional.
Trying to remember, I think we had 400,000 back, if I remember correctly from January, we had a line ballpark of 400,000 for cafeteria renovations.
Yeah, that would be part of the renovation above and beyond the BCS.
So I don't understand the scope, but if we have both schools here, would the scheduling have to be altered to fit all the kids into?
I'm sure it would,
So
but
it
not.
would add complications to.
Well, it's a logistical complication, Josh, but I don't think, nothing prohibits it, and if it wasn't practical or wasn't, Josh or the team would have been like, we can't do that.
It's working.
Yeah, I'm sure from a logistical perspective, they can manage it. But we did have that line in there at the Target cafeteria. So, go ahead.
Approximately how much levy percentage would we be adding to the 5.66 or the 19.30 for the necessary bus garage and athletic fields?
We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Okay, that's a big piece for me to see where we end up in terms of.
Right. It is, and that's a great point, and I'll get those helps on the next couple slides.
Sorry.
No, not at all, not, this is it's a great point to raise, because it's what we talked about too. We know that's gonna have to come, but I think the decision making is really gotta be on the academic part of thinking ahead, knowing what we're gonna talk about, what that percentage might be, to be the case, but I got a lot of implications for that as well. So we certainly don't want to lose sight of it.
With that said, would that sort of part B of the project with the bus garage and the athletic fields have to fall under the 10-year mark in terms of a positive referendum in order to get even some of the state aid we're talking about, or is that?
Here's the thing, and I'm deferred up, I know Eric's not here, but bus garage is always fully aidable, and that shouldn't change based on the merger. The
That
field-
is not hamstrung to the 10-year.
Yes, but don't quote me. We always calculated, I don't know if you know, or we gotta ask Eric, but we've always been calculating the garage aid separate if full.
Yes. The 90%.
Not, yeah, well, I'm full, the full aid, which is the full aid ratio.
Because we'd be building a bus garage to the capacity that it is aid eligible. We wouldn't go above and beyond and build extra stores that SED wouldn't need.
Yeah, but it's a notion of, do we need to be under that to get,
Within the
Yeah.
additional aid.
and I didn't think that aid applied to the garage, but I could be wrong, but we'll confirm it. And the fields were never,
I'm all for phase development unless we get really penalized for not getting that second phase in within 10 years.
right, or, phase it and just triple the effort to try to find a place for the other one to get it in. And that'll be less of a scope, is it a vote and then another vote a year later, you're still under. Or maybe,
There could be more than one vote.
as we sit here right now, there has to be. Yeah, as we stand here right this second, there has to be, unless you push this one out further. We need to get a submission in to get on that earlier calendar, and we don't have any idea where the garage or the fields can go right now. Can Mike opine on that? Can we hear him at all?
Should be able to.
Or is Eric on?
As long,
Mike
Mike's
is
on.
on.
As long as you can hear, he can hear you, you should be able to hear him.
Mike, you're muted.
Okay, all right, we'll start
Yeah.
there.
I can hear you guys fine.
Right. We
What
can hear
was their question?
You hear that, we've been talking about the transportation aid.
Yep.
Do you know, or if we need to check with Eric, is that impacted with merger aid or no?
We've assumed that we would get 90.1% on the transportation facility just as we would on the educational facility. If we go beyond the 10 years, I don't know this for a fact, but conceivably we would revert back to whatever the aid ratio is going to be after the 10-year period, which is probably in the 80s.
So you'd want to move on to that.
That 10-year window.
I don't know if Josh had when it was going to close. You don't remember, do you, by chance?
I don't.
It was 2018 you did the
I think you
merger?
merged in 18, right?
Yeah, so it's 28 or 29.
Yeah, so that gives, that's project in, and the good news is fields and transportation are a quick review. We don't have to do a lot of the dance that we're doing with all the other stuff. It's a faster review. So assuming it was 2018 when the merger was, if that's when they started the clock, it's 2028. You're talking about voting this in 26. This part of the
I'm
project.
pretty certain I heard Josh refer to year 4 back in the fall. Like we were in year 4. We're
That
trying
would
to.
have been,
I don't think that's.
it would have been 20, that would have been 2020.
We are in year 6 right now.
We're in year 6 right now?
Yeah. Yep.
We're in year 6 right now.
29.
Very good.
So 29, we say 28, 29, say 28 to be conservative, vote in 28, which would be 2 years out beyond, and you'll still be okay. But the bus ride, this isn't a huge, the good news is like this, that's not the development and the constraints but doing non-educational spaces is a lot easier.
Is there any way for us to get somewhere between the full rental and the limited? Like, how does that happen? Like,
Yes, there's a million different ways it can be that, and I guess as a committee, which we'll get to now, you're not gonna say it's gonna be here in one way or the other. You're gonna give the constraints of your recommendation. Does that make sense? So we're not saying it's here and it's not another penny because we don't know what it's gonna be. It's conceptual recommendation, and to your point, if it was that, it would be using up to the MCA. And if you wanted to be in between that, and you could have language in there looking beyond, from a deliberate perspective for something that might be necessary, or, put language in there like that. Because it's always, you can target, especially when you're borrowing down the road and we don't know, we gotta go back and get these MCAs confirmed. We'll never know one way or the other. But conceptually, this whole running up to as much aid as you possibly can, if that's where the hinge is, but knowing you're 5'7" already there, right? So a lot of times conversations are, how high do you want to go? How much levy, right? Which impacts rate and all the other pieces. How much you want to spend versus how much you want to borrow, which is how much it is on the levy versus how much it is on your taxes.
I mean, we could also do the whole scale of the addition with the limited rental, right? I mean, there's nothing that stops us from doing that as well.
No, it's just gonna change the numbers.
That's just,
Or the other way around.
Yeah, or the other way around, right. I mean, if you go back to that point, we know what it is, right? If you do full scale of the addition, you're already at what the limited one is at, for even more than that, actually.
what does the limited cover as far as exterior? Does it touch anything on exterior? Just
So I'm talking about
exterior?
limited, Taylor, with exterior as in which do.
Like facade, windows, anything like that?
Windows, I believe, are in the BCS as part of the law, short-term items to address. Anything with the roof, anything that's gonna make the building leak, the foundations along the exterior that are cracking and water infiltration is in the crawl spaces. Yeah, any of that would be addressed.
Yeah, it's not everything. It's not. It's making sure, systems are up and anything that's stressing the integrity, that's structural or otherwise, is taken care of.
It's
But
safety.
to your point, you did the full addition. Let me go back. You're at 3.7 with the smaller addition and limited rentals. Did the full addition, you're already $1 million over where you currently are. And then you'd have to cut the rentals, and this is at 13 you couldn't do. If you're already at 4.7, you've got to cut, you're cutting 10 million out of those renovations from the full. Anyway, so when you look at levy impact, right, the original project was 24%. Right, good. Big number. Limited is about 19, and again, I'm sorry, full is 19. Limited, about 5.7. All right, and remember, which we've already clarified, right, there's no rise out of the fields and the transportation, it's just about the rental and the addition here. All the numbers are estimates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right, it's never final to the person in SED takes, okay, it's final. So what does it mean? And again, this is all power, right? So your levy is $8.3 million. So 1% on the levy is about $83,000, right? This is straight, like when you do your budget in May and everything else, we're gonna, raise the levy 1% for another $83,000, right? So if we're raising the levy 5.66%, it's about $470,000, because this is what we want to, again, limit. Average cost over limited is about $470,000. So we need to generate $470,000 into the budget and carry it through. And the way to generate that is the rate goes up 12 cents per set, 1,000 on assessed value to generate that 1%. Again, that number is from your 100%, it's on the bottom of your budget. And I think there's a variety, there's still one municipality that's not at 100%. But if you look at the bottom of your budget newsletter, that's where it gives your 100% rate at. So it takes 12 cents per thousand to raise $83,000. We have to raise 407 in the limited one. You have to raise 407, right? So it's the rate is at 12 cents times 5.66. So it's 68 cents on the rate. I know there was a lot in there. Rate and levy and stuff is always very confusing. You know, the levy is how much money we have to have. The rate is what you do to be able to raise that. Yes.
Joe, that, sorry, I don't understand the math a lot, but the levy, is that, the 5.6, is that a yearly thing that they do, the 5.6?
No, it's one time. Right, you're spending $100. Next year, you need to spend 100, you need to build your budget to 110. So again, hypothetically, you put in the rate to get you to that 110, and that raised you up to that level, and it stays there. So it's a one-time 68 cents.
Yeah, but the amount is 470,000 every year, on the bond.
Right.
Wonder if that's what
Yeah, but you felt that once you raise it,
that's where it's.
it stays.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Could the Westport building be, is it the plan to sell that property? And could that compensate some of this 400?
And that's gonna be the last slide. Absolutely. What are opportunities for revenue? 100%. If that's what the district determined they want to do with it, because committee's gonna recommend that we don't use it, to sell it will be a great opportunity for revenue. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's extrapolate this. Okay, so remember, 1% on the levy is $83,000. We need $83,000, we have to raise the rate 12 cents. But we don't need 83, we need 470, right? So we have to do that 5.6 times. 12 cents, 5.6 times equals 68 cents per thousand. So on 100% equalization, again, this is right out of your budget newsletter last year. The rate was 11.55. Now, I know people say, that's not my rate, that's at 100% equalization from your budget newsletter, which most of the munis are at. The rate you published, and it might not be this, I took it off your budget newsletter from May, and I have a source right there at the bottom. I don't know what you set the rate at in August because, you know, like I told you when I sent out the draft, we're still getting numbers and we're still working with people. I don't know what the full is now that it was set in August, but it was proposed at 11.55. So let's say hypothetically it was 11.55. So you add 68 cents to that. Right, so the tax increase on, if the new levy becomes the $12.23. You're at 11.55, and then you're gonna add the 68 cents. So, in a dollar increase, you were paying 11.55, and your taxes went up to 12.23. The House assessed us $100,000 in the full equal, you know, no EQ rates or anything in that full assessment is $68. 150 is 102, and 200 is 137 a year. Now, this is important because I want the context is really important because it speaks to our conversations over 6 months. Sure, go ahead.
This is only on the limit.
Correct. I got it on the next slide.
Because that information, the extent is not in the schedule.
Correct.
Okay.
Did you Xerox what we have? Clean or no?
I gave it all
Do you have the one you brought? Did you bring one?
No, this is the one I took off the table.
The next slide has all.
Okay, next question.
I thought it did. No, it didn't. No, we didn't put the extensive in.
So this stuff is always terribly confusing. Can you go back and tell me where that $470,000?
I certainly can. Lower right-hand corner, 469, 254. That's your average impact over this amortization schedule of borrowing that. And at the top, you got a $34.4 million project, and ultimately, your local share from the other slides is 8.4. Now, it's higher because capitalized interest is in there. Right, we said it was 5, it was 4, but you gotta account for the interest, and that can be high. You always gotta include gap I in the ground. Yeah. So, sure, no problem. So the average over the time, you can see, is essentially 4.7. So when you look across, the 3 projects, and I don't know why I did, I think it was because trying to get everything out there with the financial information coming in. So we just did the highest to the lowest. No, I didn't put it in. You originally went out, because I think it's important to say, this was the project that went out in February 24. On a $100,000 assessment, it was a $273 impact. Your limited runout is 68. And even in the highest scenario, you go from $546 a year to $136. It's over $400 difference. That's a lot. That's pretty significant. It's pretty significant. Go ahead.
The limited rent-out increase in taxes 12 cents per thousand would be about probably 20 years. It's a blended, probably a blended.
Not a great year. 28 to 45. Yeah, almost 20, 17.
Okay. They won't finance it any longer than that.
No. So again, I think it was important to see here, and math in my head real quick. 19, call it 20.
$0.24.
$2.40.
$2.40.
$2.40.
On top of the other thing.
Yeah, 12 cents. 20, yeah, $2.40.
So 240 for $100,000.
I just think this perspective meant a lot. I'm just going back through everything. It means a lot. Now, granted, referendum didn't pass yet. We did the new building, the fields, we're on the lot, and we're all these other things. Yes. But the question we talked about before is the site is the money, right? All the things we went through, the answer was yes, all of them. And I think the committee took the time and weighed all that through, knowing that we didn't want to be on that site and knowing that the project was too much money. So it just shows the due diligence and it shows the thinking and I think the work that we've done since September about how we can approach it in a different way. And to the point about you can always use this to anything downtown, right? So what about the fields? What about the garage? Right, but if right now as you sit here, 12% of 1,000, 1% gets you $83,000. So say you needed the same kind of scenario. Say you needed to go another 5.6. It's gonna put you at 12. Say you double it. You're at 5.7, you're gonna go to 11.4. So instead of 68, you will put another 68 down the road.
You think that's about how much that project is?
It's hard to say. It depends. Like we were just talking, which we'll do. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but we will look. The parcel we looked at now. Somebody sent the Fox Run parcel. Gateways? No, that was the golf course that wasn't for sale. Somebody sent Fox Run. Maybe it was the realtor.
Where is that?
Oh, we got the map and stuff. We'll pull all that out. Yeah.
I'm assuming it's the Hillcrest.
I believe so. It's about 2.5 miles away, 5-minute drive.
It's the Hillcrest.
The location's good. It's bigger, but the problem is one, it's for sale. And I think, don't quote me, I thought the number was 600 on it. That's a conversation you can have. There's no power. That's not true. There's no phase three power. So, three-phase. So that's got to be brought in. That's going to be a few $100,000. So it depends, the cost of where you end up is going to be dependent on the site development. Is a big part of
Is
it.
it the
There's a
whole
chunk in the front, excuse me?
Is it the whole property? The whole property is 900,000, I know that.
Is that what it is? Okay, yeah, and it's 250 something acres too. It's not a small
I
parcel.
know what it
by any
is, my
means.
stepfather owned it. I rode horses up there for a good many years.
Yeah, and
It's a
the,
beautiful piece of property. but-
no question, no question. And we'll look at the map. The area closest to the road is got a good grade. Right, but once you start getting further back, it starts getting steep, so we want to be close to the road.
It incorporates all of Wood Hill too, right to the top.
It's 258, we don't need 258, right? But we looked at it and said, okay, it's something that's viable, but it's the site development's gonna drive that cost. We've been saying all along, to build it, it's $3 million plus or minus, build the fields. Couple million in site, you got a $5 million project, right? You got a $5 million project, you've got a little bit more than, we're at 470, add another percent on, 68, 12, 80 cents, 80 bucks, or 12 cents, right? Say you gotta raise another percent. But I do think you stage it as another part of the conversation. Like I always had success with, this is part of the conversation. Like part of the conversation now in the recommendation, we didn't get to the fields. We didn't get to the transportation budget. We have to get to it. So even if you do, you still are in a significantly better place than where you started. But it's a wild card. Don't have part.
Do we pay them for the use of their fields? Do we pay camp for the use of their fields now?
No.
Okay, just a question. Camp Dudley fields, I just wondered if.
As long as we're at that point of the moving anywhere where we can talk about that. But I don't want to walk away from the conversation we're having on this before we talk about really working on the commingle fields. We know we have to do a part of the recommendation is it has to get done. But I had a big project to do. We had to build a new school. We had to completely renovate 2 other schools. It was built in the early 70s, all over the classrooms. So all the classrooms were like this, and there were bookshelves. Everybody remembers when that was separating the classrooms. So we had to go around and put walls in all the classrooms. We couldn't do it all. Couldn't do it all at once. So we broke it up. We came back, and the committee decided we have to close these elementary classrooms in. Like that was the priority. Everything else waited. Right, so that was the first part of it, and then building the school and using it for swing space. Then we went back and did the renovations in the middle school, renovations in the high school.
Did anybody think about renovating either the bus garage here or the bus garage in Westport?
The bus garage, renovating this one here is not a good investment. It's good money after bad for this one. It would have to be torn down, build one there, which maybe that's an option too. I don't know.
I'm just
Yeah,
asking.
that could be an option. But the current state, the age and the current state of the structure wouldn't be a renovation there, you would tear it
The
down.
property itself.
You would tear it down, I think the county, somebody expressed interest, Josh, I think maybe the county had interest in that property too. If we could-
Bus storage was an issue too.
What's that?
Storing the buses on site.
But that problem still needs to be solved. And I think this committee was charged with the long-range part of this, remember, our statement of what we're supposed to be doing, long-range facility. We don't lose sight of it, still needs to be addressed. But the reality is, you can get by using the fields you have forever. And you can continue to use the bus garage, even though it desperately needs to be, if you stay there, you tear it down, no question. But there's scale and scope, so is it not, so the question, the recommendation, the board is, can it be more than light and not full and those kinds of things? You have this understanding that you can share to them of what you can be looking at here, right? And we know that's not, again, all the things we need, know that that's 5.7% on the left. We went between 24% and 5.7. We know 20%, but it was 240. Yeah,
Joe, I wonder if it would help the committee if BCA made a simple bullet outline of what the limited renovation would be. Maybe you did that already, I'm not sure. I know you said
yeah,
BCA.
we talked about it in January. The problem is we don't know beyond mechanical and structural what it is until we get in and do that work. Because the administration just they gotta go through the building and make that second part of the list, where we knew in the full, we were going into classrooms and we were doing similar
BCA
things.
does identify specifically.
So the BCS list, okay,
BCA did the plan.
yes, we can do that.
Maybe a simple outline would help the committee understand. Just a bullet, upgrade all HVAC systems, place roof on gym, whatever.
Yeah, so we can easily provide that. It was $9 million out of the 13.
Yeah, I wonder if, hang on,
So the buffer on top of that was,
Just a suggestion, I don't know.
No, I think that would be very helpful to that list.
let me see if,
But I also think it would be helpful to get a list of, in addition to that, what are the costs for the items in the full? Because then you could say, all right, if we're looking at maybe coming in somewhere in between, we could say, this would be, here, these extra items might be where we want to
How
go.
windows replaced or whatever.
Right,
yeah, that's gonna get into specific interior unless you do more on the BCS list.
yeah, so the idea of the additional money on the BCS above and beyond the sort of the minimum 9 million that you need to do is we're allocating $5 million or $4 million in limited renovation to enhanced spaces, enhanced program, reconfigure. That could be, that gives us the referendum amount, and then it gives us a number to design to. So if we're working out with faculty and stakeholders during the actual design phase, we know we have $5 million to allocate to X. There are certain items in the BCS that we're not touching that we might use, and then there are, let's renovate 3 science rooms because they're a little antiquated and we need to end up enhancing program that way. So it's sort of a allocated amount of money for further enhancements beyond the BCS. And that number is, I think what you're asking is, can we find somewhere in the middle between two, nine-ish million, and
I got it here, it's for November.
is the number of items, mechanical, roof, windows, abatement in the areas that we're touching, security enhancements at the door, anything safety, leaks, infrastructure and the like. And then it was, do you want 7 million? Do you want 4 million? Do you want 12 million? I think is the high end.
Here it is. This is from November.
That's the overall.
Right.
Yeah, so you want to go one more. Keep going.
The total? This was the Mountain View. This is.
I thought that was the entire BCS versus.
No, this is the Mountain View.
Right. But we had, I thought I broke it out, items that are sort of recommended, that's the BCS, and then items that are, you need to do this. It would be around the same. Either way, to answer your question, we'll give you a outline of the less than 5-year infrastructure systems and the like that will be addressed. Yeah, keep going a couple.
Yeah, we're priorities.
Yeah, here.
Okay, good, sorry.
Yeah, so these immediate needs, we want to look at the Mountain View campus. So we're 7 million actually, so we're 7 million over for enhanced.
This is the November deck. So, to Taylor's point, and I think Dave, maybe we were going with this, what is the 7.6 in the BCS site envelope, which I think we were talking about before.
Go back one slide, Joe.
Sure.
One more, like to the left, yep. So drainage improvements, playground upgrades, parking lot, sidewalk, step replacement, foundation wall. That's this wing over here where there's some visible cracking that water's infiltrating and getting in under the foundation. door replacement on the exterior, a lot of doors that have daylight showing through, abatement for flooring, ceilings, and then that's a scope that fluctuates based on what we do for additional renovations. Mechanical systems throughout the entire building, a lot of piping replacement, the kitchen equipment, the fire alarm notification, PA system, so that's an SCD requirement, and then security and access improvements. A lot of that is car rear access or along the building if you need it, but mainly hardening the secure vestibule here because it's
But it's not sexy.
Right.
It is to engineers or architect, but, right, you're not gonna walk, well, we just spent $8 million on what? But yeah,
You're still doing a lot.
yeah, it's tough, like, that was the hardest project here. Like, I mentioned that I had to break a project in half and got to basically this list in the middle school. They did it over the summer and some additional times. It was all ductwork, it was soffit, it was windows, and it was abatement, and some plumbing issues too, because it was all a 50s building, a lot of it was underground. And it comes back and says, right, what'd you do? That was ironically, that was a $6 million project, and what did you do? Like, here's the list, and when you go, prepare all your project stuff for the referendum. That's the kind of list that would begin to say, and it's like, no, that's what we did. We said we were doing the roof and the soffits, and, which means nothing, unfortunately. When you walk in and say, oh, I got all this new equipment. It's not, but, like I said, that was a 1955 building, and it's a beautiful building. It's a beautiful building. Okay.
I think we started to dabble with this during our last meeting, but I want to return to what also would be very helpful as we move forward. I don't necessarily care if we talk about it in terms of dollars spent as a tax increase per thousand of assessment, or if we talk about it in terms of percentage of levy that is either increased or decreased. But I think we really need to find a comfortable number, whether it's percentage or dollars, that we believe that this district will tolerate for a yes vote.
10% or
And
less.
what's that?
10% or less. Right?
So I think we need to build consensus on that particular piece, because as I look at 19.330%, right, and that doesn't include bus garage or the fields, in good faith, for someone that's worked through the last project and knows it clearly that didn't roll, we're adding, that's gonna be about the same or more than the
Yes.
other one, right?
Yes,
We're all
yes,
spread out, right?
yes.
So we really, somewhere between the limited and this other one, we have to find a number, a percentage or a number that we think is going to be tolerated by all of us and all of our neighbors. And then I think Taylor has made it pretty clear that we have, and you did too a minute ago, Joe, that some of these things have to fall into line with priority, right? And also, like, first things first, like, where are we going to end up? What are we willing to propose to the taxpayers, and what can we do good for these, for the school, for the kids, and for this community? How can we find a happy medium, and how do we build that consensus and then go from there?
Are you talking about including fields and garage in that number though?
I feel like in good faith, we have to have at least, yes. I guess that's why I
Because
asked
the
earlier.
time you might get around to doing that, and then you're artificially setting a limit, and you don't know what it's gonna be, no idea what it's gonna be when you stumble into it. I think you can put verbiage around those things in a suggestion, but I can't see, the board's not gonna say, well, it's 5, so we're not gonna go above 10 ever. You don't want, you set yourself up for failure.
So if 10 is the number, and we think that there's whatever we think is, I mean, ultimately, if we spend the money that we know the taxpayers are going to spend on just the school renovations and the small addition, and we don't save any money for a bus garage and athletic fields, we really don't know what the long-term agreement is for using the athletic fields at Camp Dudley. I certainly don't.
Right.
Right.
I don't know what's formal, what's informal, what's in stone, what's not in stone. that isn't a given forever, unless someone else knows that. And so like we have to, if we want to carry and conduct business with offering kids extracurriculars and having a bus garage to house transportation.
Sure.
We have to, like, in good faith, save some money on the table, or we just end up with none of that.
Yeah, I think, I'm sorry, go ahead, Darrell, before I go back.
Could you develop a valid and reliable survey to put out to the public so that we have some idea of what they are willing to support? So we're not just wasting a lot of time putting up another proposition and having it voted down again?
Well, part of it is a couple of things. And we're exactly at where I didn't want to end up being at, of this commingle. And we can talk to a little face about the other pieces. You need to be cognizant, we just finished renovations in Skate area. And when we built all of them, said, we're coming back for Skate area. We're coming back in 2 years for Skate area. We're coming back for Skate area. And we went back and everybody knew. And I think that was that kind of lens and the approach to it is important. But there's a ton of due diligence to get this done. In the field conversation, we're kicking around numbers that are all, we're just, who are you working on, Cal, that they're doing the field up north? They're doing what, 15 million in fields?
Yes.
Or 2 turf? I mean,
It's
what are
turf.
2 turf
We haven't
lights?
been talking about turf here, but yes, $15 million for turf and drainage and some.
Yeah, right, so part of the due diligence with that, again, is, okay, what do we really need and how do we space it out and make sure that it's right? You gotta be careful, go ahead.
I think what Tom is trying to get at is not that we are saying this is what it's going to cost, but we can kind of guesstimate what that additional cost is going to be, not limiting it, saying we're not spending beyond that, but if we know that we have a general idea of what that additional cost will be, and we think that the total increase that this community, this district will tolerate is no more than 10%, then we look at this project with that in mind. And
Total 10%?
So that's.
Because you'll never be able to do it.
That's
You're
what you're
never-
saying, 36.
You're never gonna be less than, I'd be shocked.
The thing is, if you do a vote at 6%, you ask for 6% on this vote, yeah, maybe that would pass it, but then if you try to ask for another 6% on athletic fields and garages later, who's gonna vote for that? I mean, they're gonna vote that down.
Well, and that's part of the reason why we're looking at the chapter business too, because you got necessary academic stuff that we gotta deal with in these buildings. Would they? I don't know. And I think part of it is the transparency, knowing out of these things we're talking about. But you will never get that's sort of 4%. You're never gonna get fields for that. It's never gonna happen. I mean, we're looking at a parcel right now, I think you said 900,000, right? I mean, if you wanted to go there, there's $1 million. There's $1 million just to get on the property. There's, what we say, $300,000-$400,000 to bring the power down the road. You're 1.314, and you haven't done anything.
still, what I'm trying to say is that as we're looking at trying to find a place between the limited and the extensive, that we give ourselves a limit based on knowing that we are going to have to consider a second.
Okay, you're
project.
talking about something, and maybe I misunderstand, but Tom
Not
was
that is what
talking,
I'm
Tom was
saying.
talking about all in, and you're talking about limited to rent. Limited to expensive.
Correct.
I agree with it, I agree 1,000%, like, knowing this conversation, would get as close to limited and stay at limited.
Because
Knowing, for those whole reasons that we're talking, which I think we were talking about with Tyler raising, okay, is it limited and what's in there? You're raising the point, the further we go about that, we're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Right. But is there, at the same time, is there some leeway in there to put in some additional, and I don't know the answer to that.
Sounds like
But
it's
as
not,
we're-
sounds
but
like
as-
it's
Joe,
limited. It's not
no,
anything.
It sounds like it's gonna be 12% total already, and who's gonna?
The short answer, sure, there's a ton, and once they get into everything beyond, we looked at the other deck, we saw that was on there, like I said, it's fixing the building, it's fixing the building systems, and it's fixing the building envelope. And if you want to go, $83,000 beyond that, 1% on, it's 1% on the levy.
Joe, can I just chime in a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you go back to the,
The other deck?
no, the limited renovation slide that has the whole outline that shows the 5%? Keep going. I think,
This?
one more, the one that has go forward two now. The one that has like the addition renovation all the way down to
That's all I got.
$3 million out of, yeah.
For the full? The limit?
Not the longevity, the, like, one, right here, yeah.
Okay.
So this would be a $31,600,000 referendum. That's what you'd be voting for. What the question is being asked is, can that be 37 million? If it's, well, I'm throwing numbers out. If it's 10%, it's 37 million. And there's probably language about a site purchase. Maybe it's worked out, maybe it's not, but you're voting on 37 million, knowing that you might spend $6 million on bus garage and some sites. If it's 6.5, if it's 3.5, the rest of the money can, this is probably how it worked, be adjusted based on the renovation amount at this building. So you might have $7 million in renovations right now, but if you add on another 7 million, I'm just throwing numbers out, that gets you to a number that the community would vote on. That would be an appropriate tax impact, or whichever we look at. And maybe it's 37 million. It has the number built in. You might have to go back and vote to approve the site purchase once you find that.
I don't know if you could call,
But the
that'd have to be in the
referendum is-
resolution. All that would have to be in the resolution.
Yeah, it's a future site purchase for athletic fields and bus garage. I think we
Is
could.
this limited idea just for renovations, or is it for these 14 new rooms that?
It's for the addition
It's-
and the renovations.
And so then my question along that is, also, I know you've removed some pieces of that addition. Is there anything else? Is there any way to reduce that so that there is some additional money for renovation?
Josh and I talked at length about anything else, and it's, you're at bare minimum. And I think everybody has to reflect too, is like, we don't want better than bare minimum, right? And it goes back to everybody wants a lot of things, so it doesn't mean you're gonna get everything. But I wouldn't scale back on any of the academic spaces that are in here now. This is not, we're not talking about, if you were doing giant and other, paving the hallways with gold and, these other giant, media room this big with all, then I would say, get it out. But it's meat, it really is meat and potatoes. It really is.
Related to Sheriff's question, the new plan showed 20 classrooms dedicated to the pre-K 6. And my question for Lee is, do you have 20 classrooms now in Westport that you use for the pre-K 6 program? Do you use 20 classrooms now for the pre-K 6 entire program?
That includes spec. That's 16 classes and 4 spec.
Sorry?
PK 6 would be 16 classrooms, 2 sections to each level, and those 4 special ed classrooms.
So you have 20 in the humanity program.
That's four.
Yeah, so I think if you say K6 is 12 classrooms, pre-K gets you to 14.
No, you're missing one. K6 would be,
Sixth grade is over here, and they're already.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, K6 is 14. K6 is 14, pre-K is 2, and then that leaves the remaining classrooms for AIS and special education, so.
I'm using about 16 rooms now.
Yeah.
And we have 20 rooms on the plan. That's
well, the AIS room's not labeled. I mean,
special ed, I understand, yeah.
yeah, special, it's not, we're stepping over a dollar to try to pick up a penny to take 770 square feet out. It doesn't, it's,
The problem is,
it's where you are not overbuilding by any stretch of the imagination. And they're gonna hate that.
I don't see a population explosion happening around here too.
No, it's predicted as being stable, but they may stadium and I want to look at that again too, which we talked about before. Yeah, sure.
the problem is, you have a lot of the community that doesn't even think we even need the addition. I mean, somehow, someone needs to explain to the community that we need those additional 16 to 20 rooms, whatever you decide. I mean, that, you keep seeing that a lot.
Ultimately, it's us.
Well, you're reading my mind, Tom. I mean, but you make a decision to be able to do that.
I mean, that was off the original program study, right? That was-
In terms of, go ahead.
And I still want to go, and maybe somebody can explain this to me, and I'm sorry to be harping on this. Why are we planning 2 classrooms in that addition for 6th grade when we've got 2 classrooms for 6th grade in this building? And I realize it's not a lot of space, but when we are in this predicament, it seems to me that any way that we can reduce that space is helpful.
I again, which I think Keller said before, I don't know if all the labels are right, or the AIS rooms are on there too, but I really would,
Okay.
you know, I think if it was more than a chair, I'd say, take it out. I was the first one to say, get these other spaces out of the, we don't need 2 cafeteria, we don't need these other things. You know, and part of it too is, you know, so you can share, how far back do you want to go? And you're saying, wow, what are we doing this for, to have to be in a box?
There's something out there too, something that I kind of realized, if we build a building like right to the capacity, like red line, like pack it, just pack it. What it will save money, but I think one of the things that, and I don't know how to communicate this to the community, but we have to be able to be really flexible year to year, because one year we may have a student population that requires more space, more room, more teachers, more support, and the next year, nothing.
That's a really good point too.
So if we build a school with the idea of, we need to absolutely maximize our space, it will save us money, but it makes it very, very difficult for everybody to like change within our changing population. And with a small population,
You pick up,
Very valid point.
4 special ed, you get 4 kids, you get classified and move in, you need to grow. You know, they're getting another wing on here, really driving on. Right, I look at the enrollment and see where it is in the spaces. Like I said, I have always been confident that it's really not overbuilt. It's just not.
And
The vows before that, we can't rent it anymore too, you know, but right, how, it's about stretching everything. This is really, the limited is limited.
And I just want to say one more thing, and then I promise I will stop, get off this topic. And I sent this to all of you, but there are 7 rooms in this building that are used 3 times a day. 3 periods a day. And it's not our job to tell the administration where they should put people. But to me, that tells me that the existing space could be used more efficiently.
You said
Exactly. I sent it to the committee members.
Exactly.
I think
Don't
Josh.
stop talking, Sheila.
I think that Josh spoke to that last time.
They maxed out with,
Sure.
I can't think of the schedule. There's no way there might be a class that's taken part of the day, but with all the requirements and all the special needs students and everything that, as to what Josh said, I understood is that we are maxed out.
Do you want to hear from, sorry, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt the committee while we're talking. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to what Darlene said earlier. I think the survey is great. When we had the last vote, it was 50% to move them into Mountain View. And part of the reason was because people thought they could all fit. And if we go out to vote and say, let's go to 16-room addition, when you yourself have said there's 7 rooms over here, being used 3 periods a day. We have rooms being used as storage. The public is going to be a firm no again. And we've wasted another couple of years.
If you guys, if the public doesn't vote for a limited reno, then we're gonna be stuck with
It's
two buildings.
not the limited.
But then we'll have two buildings with
It's the
increased costs.
addition, because no matter what, you've got to maintain that addition every year. So it's like buying a dog that's on sale, but you don't have a dog.
No, I would completely disagree with that. You know, if this is taking those spaces and moving over here. I mean, I understand the historical perspective where everything fit in the rest of the cases, but the demands of what needs to be delivered have changed. It's not, you're not, you know, if you had more than that, I would say no way. No way. But there's nothing on here that we're looking at that's saying it should not meet current need. It's really not. And you're not building any capacity in at all for anything that might come down the road. That's the worst. I mean, it's just makes it that much harder. You know, like I said, it's not like enrollment's gonna go 100, but programs change and other things change too. Yes.
With the present tariffs that are going to be starting today for our manufacturing people and builders, what do you estimate the cost to be added to this 25 million? Because you're not, I mean, if they start the tariffs today, you're going to have to figure that out too before you put that.
To the 25 million?
They got down here, $25,663.
Oh, that's some of
25%.
that number on the top right is what he's referencing.
Oh, the total project cost. Is there escalation built in?
There's escalation.
With 15, probably at least 15.
Factors, yeah.
Yeah, there's escalation built in, but you still don't, like I said, it's all, you know, we built in probably 15%, I'd imagine right now.
It's to the midpoint of construction, which would be what, 28 or 9?
But until you go out and bid, like in a perfect world, the borrowing environment's better. You know, you're carrying that capitalized interest. When you go back out, I mean, a percent makes a big, as we know, makes a big difference. Makes a big difference. Go ahead.
Do you have figures regarding how much money we have in our capital reserve fund?
Yeah, and this applies that to this. I think it's 4 million. Actually, yes, we use it, yeah. Yeah, it's assuming 4 million, because I think we have 5 right now, and you have to do the finish paint off the roof at Lakeview.
That's going to be reimbursed by the state, right?
There's 8 on it, yes, but it's kind of age you're getting now.
Emergency.
Right, and I think, yeah. But because it's an emergency project, doesn't change. Yes,
We're in real scary times.
agreed.
You know? And we have aging population, we have maybe a tax on social security. All that has to be considered. Look at my taxes. Look at this part of my taxes, and then I look at my town taxes, and see what towns have to do. You know, portions of my town tax, 40%. It's a scary time.
Absolutely.
And I hear these people say, we gotta get this through. And any way we can make it cut. And I hate to do it, because I've been an educator for 40 years. Okay, we have to make it cut, we have to sell this. But
100%.
that's what it takes. We have to cut some classrooms in order to get this through. And being unused classrooms or limited use classrooms.
Could we build an addition for 9 million instead of 12 or not? I just, what do you get for 9?
And the problem is footprint. I mean, I'm not gonna get into updating it, I mean, right? I tell you what, it's footprint up and down, right?
Yeah.
Mechanicals, I mean,
Not gonna get any classroom enhancement, the technology enhancement, they don't show up on the PCF, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you're
so
just saying that if you, okay, if you, you know, if 4 classrooms is a make or break, you know, do you shrink the footprint? Take $500,000 out? I mean,
I think we have to look back at, can we shrink the footprint, but I know we could shrink the renovation because the bare minimum is $7 million.
right.
So, but that bare minimum is,
But the renovation isn't where the extra cost is coming from to the taxpayers. It's in the addition, 3 million in the addition, so.
Hey,
That's
Joe, can I make a point?
Yeah, go ahead.
You got to remember, the only thing aidable in an elementary school are classrooms. So if we cut 4 classrooms out, sure, we don't have to build them, but we're also losing the aid. So
Actually, if you look, I wonder if that shows up here.
Because that's the 90% that's aidable anyways, so really.
Yeah.
the
So you're
classrooms are costing you 10 cents on a dollar.
10%, you're losing 10%. You're losing 10%. That's why the savings came from taking out the unaided spaces.
So Joe, just so I'm clear, if we do like, if we just did the bare minimums, are we basically just kicking the can down the road?
No, because you're candidly saving the building.
We're spending 31 million.
I mean, you're saving the building. You're gonna keep it, even the envelope stuff, like Taylor was talking about water issues and, you know, the roof, the water. Got one boiler, but you can't get parts for the boilers. You know, I mean, there's nothing, like, this is all electrical stuff, health safety, you know, the fire alarm, clocks. This is not, you know, it's hard to digest. We're in a place to spend this much money to keep the place standing.
Yeah.
You know, when you think about really what the expenditures are, right? When you're spending more on renovations, just to keep the building up.
Perhaps a lot of this is not your plan that people are negative on. It is the utilization of this building right now that is not being utilized for what it was meant to be. In other words, to teach the children. We have 6 rooms in this building right now that are being used for mental health.
That's
We
it.
can't teach the kids if we don't address their mental health.
We got a mental health right across the road, like,
They don't have any.
you know, no transportation needed.
I love, and.
But I'm just saying, I think that's a lot of the people's negative
Oh,
thoughts.
I agree.
I think that's a
No,
lot of
it's
people's
huge.
negative thoughts, is the utilization of this building is not what it was intended to be.
The needs we have,
The need to address the mental health of especially our really young kids. We live in a really weird world.
You don't need to tell me anything about it.
I know, but we cannot teach these kids if we are not taking care of their mental health, because some of these kids are coming to us with, they're just not in a place where they're even capable of learning.
But there's 6 in this building and there's no young children, quote. in this
Teenagers,
building.
these
I'm just saying, I'm
teenagers
just
are just as much
putting it out there.
in trouble. I know, and
As a
actually.
community, you know I love kids.
Oh, no, I know,
I take
hear,
care of
but
your
I
kids.
think
You want to
something
go around the room? But I'm just saying to you, I think that is the people, I'm talking for the people in the community. And I think that that's the disappointment, is that this building is not being utilized to what the expectations were. I'm all for improving. If you need 14 classrooms, do it. But let's utilize these storage spaces. That was our library. That, when I was on the board, we built that beautiful elementary library. I mean, you know what I mean?
no, I do.
I'm just trying to.
I do, and it's so hard. The scope of services, and this isn't anybody's fault. It's been scope creep forever. I call it scope creep. Anytime, you know, every time you're repeating more and more and more. And what we have to deliver and for who is just grown so much. It really has.
I'm
You know,
just
and it's part of the holistic program. And it's necessary to support kids in the learning environment now.
I mean, the addition really supports the ability to renovate the rest of the building as well, right? I mean, that transition
Yes,
space,
it will be swing space, no rentals on it, yes.
without that, it's.
You're going to like, right, yeah. Got to go somewhere while the rentals are
And the
going.
longer that we hold on to Lakeview and use it, we have to repair.
Right, which actually leads to,
Joe, can you clarify in the schematic design, the BCA there, maybe Chad can explain? It looks like you're not using the basement anymore, anything except the cafeteria. Is that correct?
classroom will be out of there.
Yeah, any rooms required by SED to have secondary means of egress or access to daylight.
Right,
rather than
daylight.
moving up.
You know the drill with that, I mean,
There was a computer classrooms down there, but also now Andrew's classes are there as well.
Right.
different.
So the last couple of meetings, I very uncomfortably brought up a few different times how important it is that we're planning this school into the future for what it is that we decide we value, and it's important, and that we can budget for amongst ourselves and not rely on a lot of outside grants. That was before a lot of those outside grants have even begun to go away more.
Right.
I feel like we've already had a few rounds of this discussion, and it came, and I'm not saying that you're not right in bringing it up. I'm just saying it's been brought up numerous times, and ultimately the school board is what dictates what they value and what's important. And mental health services, we've got the wonderful nursing program, and one of the, if we don't want to house a great, I forgot the name of the, what's the name of the program, is studying nurses or New Vision, thank you. If we don't want to go out of the way to be a good partner and have those kinds of amazing, cutting-edge, innovative programs here, and if we don't want to help support our kids in these different ways with mental health providers embedded with the school, I agree with you. There's a mental health building across the road. I don't think we can make that decision here. I feel like our job is already big and bad enough as it is. Like, if that's going to happen, I feel like we've got to get a little clearer. Or if we think we're at if we're kind of at a spot where we're stuck, and there's this disbelief, or there's this, everybody seems to have not a real commitment to this idea of a robust addition and how the building's being used. Ultimately, it's going to be us that has to sell this, right? So we have to buy into it. So somehow we have to get on board with what we're talking about. And it seems like if we're gonna go with what the board is proposing now, then we need to just take that at face value and move forward. And if we're gonna.
Right, and then ultimately, part of the development with the project is a real thorough, the background of everything that's gonna go into it, and the why and the where. We don't see any jargon up here about 21st century learning spaces, all this other stuff. Like this is meat and potatoes. This, frankly, this is really meat and potatoes. We've always approached it with, you went out with a project that at the low end is almost $300 a year, right? Knowing that it was a problem and approaching them with what can we do? Accommodate everybody in one place, and shore up what we have, and do as much as we can within reason. Goes back to the thing that someone mentioned, it's nice to have, nice to have, nice to have. We don't have a nice to have list. Nice to have lists. We've done the nice to have list probably in November. We literally have no nice to have list. So again, I don't think if the average nice to have list, the first column is your nice to have list, right? The second column is half to half, I really think. You can't go, if you wait for a while to go, we just did what, 1.3 million on the roof of Lakeview? Right, I mean, you backed into these positions where you had to be able to do it, now we're never gonna use the building. And we have to be in COPA with state ed to make sure we can still get the aid. Yes?
Can I suggest, I'm a great retired property director. Can I suggest that when you present this to the public for dollars and cents, that you don't go back to the past and try to make people think that they're paying less than they did years before, because it's just not.
No, 100%.
Plus, I think, if you just talk about present and future, I think you'll be good. But also, your assessments with the way that the market has gone and stuff really is quite antiquated. If you call the real property office across the road, you can get the average assessed value for a home. I can tell you for myself, I live on 2 acres My house is, and I have a 24 by 44 log cabin. My assessed value is 218,900. If you go with average assessed value, you're hitting most of the people right where they are for a dollar amount.
Oh, that's very helpful, thank you. And I think if a project moves forward,
Right.
that's gonna be really, really important.
I'm more than willing to talk to anybody about it.
No, I think that's very helpful, it makes perfect sense, and
The other thing that you can get from the real property office, when you go to look at land for fields, you can go to the real property office and you can ask them to look for land of a certain acreage that's vacant. They can give you the homeowner, they can give you their address, you can reach out to them and see if they would be really willing to sell, rather than just looking at what is for sale. And it seems like you have a little more time for that, because if you're not gonna, include it with this first thing and you're estimating and whatnot, you have a little more time for that. You might be surprised, somebody might be willing to say, hey, I've got this acreage, I don't use it.
no, that's a great point. That's a great
They can do
point.
that to you in a heartbeat, they do GIS right to real property.
Yeah, no, but that's a great point, absolutely. I think on the land side, that makes great sense, no question.
Does anybody know if the district got any responses to the article in the newsletter about people that?
Yeah, we sent out, we had an office, nothing. No, just to that point, because I think it's
Nobody
really
gets
important.
it. I mean, you don't get it in the mail, so unless you seek it out, you're not gonna, I don't get it, I don't see it.
You know, with the decision-making, with the committee, what's that?
It was in 2 newspapers as well.
It was in 2 newspapers too?
The president, as a committee, and
You know, this work was always about the committee. Right, and it's almost to that point too, like, I didn't go with, oh, your merger cost was this, and you're really saving, and you're, no, I don't, to the point of looking back and everything else. I'm not gonna show you where you were at in 2018, and you're gonna do this, and you're still kind of really ahead. Like, we don't have to refuse to do any of that kind of moving the chips around. Right, yeah, because you don't have to have that conversation. You have a conversation about this is what we're going to do, this is our share of it, this is what it's gonna cost. Yeah, sure.
Sorry, I need to go back. We're talking about that addition being pre-K through 6.
I wish we had the draw,
It's pre-K through 6, the addition. Again, right now, 6th grade is in this building, regardless of space. That's an educational philosophy question that I don't know, has the district, has the board decided that 6th grade is no longer going to be part of middle school, it's going back to be part of the elementary school?
That's, no, it's a question for Josh, and it's not for one for us to contemplate.
Right, but it impacts, we're designing the building to include 6th grade and elementary. Is the 6th grade going to be?
I don't know, Lee, you wanna wait?
Is the 6th grade in the?
Isn't it on the
newest
end of the
edition?
other one?
It's in the newest edition, in existing footprint.
From your January,
Is it January, is the drawing in January one?
yes.
Hey, Joe, if I could interrupt again, Joe?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, ignore the fact that the 6th grade classrooms may be shown in the addition. That we put that addition together strictly conceptual, so we could understand what the MCA would be, what the building aid would be. If the 6th grade, and the intent was, I think, the lower wing on the existing building that the elementary connects to would be the middle school. So simply take the pre-K or the kindergarten out of that end and the 6th grade over there. But there's no intention of changing the grade levels, middle school levels. It's simply, that plan is simply there so we can establish what the conceptual cost would be and what the conceptual aid would be.
So it was about the aid.
Yeah, and the district has not weighed in about which room would go where which end of the 6th grade would be on versus the pre-K.
Right, this will be obviously the limited one, all the cafeteria and the gym are out.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, in a limited one, the cafeteria and the gym are out. We don't have a drawing of those taken out.
You got 20 calls. Chapter to special ed, I'm sure. That's why I was asking Lee, you know, how many.
Yeah, and we're short a special ed classroom there too. We really forced that in the AIS. You lose a section there. Do you get one section that's bigger, you gotta split it again? I don't know.
So this is, my understanding is like the math is the square footage. So we can.
And the
put
age
walls-
is 200
Yeah.
classrooms, yes. Yeah.
So this is just a conceptual thing for us to like get it.
Like you said, we labeled them to make sure, get the age right, because the age comes on the classrooms.
So I would say, it sounds like people that are looking at this, if it's not written and highlighted that it's conceptual, that people are taking this for fact, and then they're like, well, look at, this is the problem, you've got too many of these. Not to say you guys are doing the correct thing, but well, I guess we have to be careful in what we share or explain, because I'm reading online, people are talking about the amount of classrooms, and it's giving people something to find wrong with the plan.
Well, if we move with this, do the, get everyone, now that the 8 counts are done, make sure that, make sure all the rooms are labeled, what we want to show it, Josh,
The classroom's worth about, with hallway, probably $600,000 per classroom.
For a classroom, I don't know, thoughts on that?
$500,000 per classroom.
It depends on this current square foot cost,
12
370.
divided by 16, real simple math, 750,000 soft costs. I realize it's probably connection renovation.
Well, you gotta remember, it's 10% of that, so. Less than that, actually, it's 9 point, call it $500,000, call it whatever. If it was $500,000, the class.
Classroom reduces the overall cost.
Yeah, reduce the cost, yes.
$600,000 or $700,000.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll reduce the total project cost, but it's the realized cost. I told you it was a $100 million project, and 99.9 of it we didn't have to pay for. It's a $100,000 project. Yeah, let's talk about the other considerations before, it's 8:15.
It's 10 after
That
7.
clock's not right, is it?
10 after 7.
Oh, it's early, okay. It's early, let's talk about other considerations, because I think this is before we talk about, because this kind of goes to some of the stuff you're talking about. Again, nothing's final. We can go up there and do a preliminary review, they can tell us the house all. We really, you never know until you go down there and go through it. The scope of the renos, kind of like what we talked about, until we make a final determination beyond these other things, what's left. We can't determine what we want to do, what's left, until we get the ball rolling to do the rest of that work up front. You've got the sale of Lakeview, I think this is right, in terms of revenue, you got sale of Lakeview, and you also have the Chippy project money coming in too, for the power cable. Right? Now, none of that's final yet, but it's coming. They're just literally waiting to, I think they're still wordsmithing, but it's done. And now you have, so confident it's done. It was Hudson Falls, real Hudson Falls is already using that one. I would have to do that. Go checks in the mail, whatever, right? We all want to cash the check when it's in the bank. But they're already using what they're assuming their revenue is on that towards their project. So you're gonna see revenue from that as well. People have raised the sewer issue. We move forward, we'll just coordinate with the municipality of wherever they're at and what's going on, especially in terms of what the rate would be coming from this building and the rest of that. So, I know from what I've read, we've been talking about it a long time. If it's coming to fruition, that's great. We'll work with the municipality on that. We can't let it, and those implications will have to be worked through. Yeah, yes, preparing the new septic, moving. Yeah. And just continue the work we're doing, which, and the work the communications have been doing with getting information out is important. Let's bring up the land really quick, and we can come back. There. This parcel, somebody sent it, maybe it was the realtor.
And I-
This one from like, did you send it? Yeah, okay, I know we got it somewhere. It looks like it had the most legs, so thank you to, Kelly, you wanna talk about it? Or, yeah, you did the work, or Mike, or,
Yeah, whichever we need.
yeah, go ahead.
Fox Run Road is 2.5 miles from here, about a 5-minute drive. It's 285 acres on two sides of the street, and from what we've heard, it would all be sold together. So it's a significant amount bigger than the site we'd actually need, but it's about 22 acres of cleared land, which is the size of the site we need. However, that's across two sides of the street. So if this was a site that we selected to be the bus garage and field side, chances are it's bus garage one side, fields on the other, if we could make that work. It does have some wetlands. I have a few drawings in here. I'm gonna sort of read off as I go, but there are some wetlands, there are some steeper grades as you get further away from the road. Through the site on the left side is a power line easement. So really we're sort of restricted towards the road side on the left side of the site. There is 3-phase power available, however, it's not on the right of way through the site. It's about a mile or half a mile up the road. Bringing that to the site would be $200,000, $300,000. There is fiber available at this spectrum. It should be available. And then as you get towards the slope, it gets significantly steeper. So as you see in the photos on the bottom, that cleared area would be the area we'd want to stay at. This is a land use map. So right now we have a little mix. On one side is low density on the left, and then there's rural use on the right. There's some wetlands shown on this one. That's the green on the right side. It's a little beyond where we would be building. If you go one more, Joe, I think I have, yeah. So this is the contour. So right down the center of the two parcels where the lines meet, that's the road. And then you can see right on the right and the left of his hand there, that's the lower slope, the lowest grade. That's where we want to build. And then as the lines get closer, that's the steep side, hillside slope.
I think, get the garage in here before you start really going uphill big time.
Yeah, so for what we need, hypothetically, if this is a site, the bus garage with the exterior parking lot, we haven't laid this out to see, cleared land versus uncleared land. The bus garage would probably go on the left side with the parking for the buses, and then the fields and parking would go on the right. Go ahead to the next one. We look at environmental assessment when we do these types of reviews, and the yellow highlight is basically all over New York State, and it's a long-haired bat that's endangered. I don't believe that bat has been seen since 1998 or so.
Is that the restriction on taking down the trees, right?
It's a habitat you have to get permission through.
Yeah.
And then there's the purplish areas are even more wetlands. So there are some wetlands we have to consider when navigating the site here. And then I think there's one more.
Is there federal and Army Corps wetlands on the site? Probably.
I have to look. I don't have my notes in front of me. I have to check.
I remember the wetland, for people, all the DEC rules just changed January 1st too, which makes it much brutal.
Yeah,
Brutal.
relocating them.
It's just saying forget it at this point.
Yeah, and this is the soil type. So most of the soil is buildable where we would build, but we do look at that as well throughout the site. And can you go back to the first two? Those are sort of the sites that have the most information. Again, 22 acres of cleared land. There is the right of way on the left. Just want to make sure I hit everything. Rocky boulders, cleared area. That's the site soil conditions. And then it's across the entire site at 670 feet above sea level to 1,000 feet.
Water's there.
Yep, water.
You
1
know,
mile
we gotta
from
bring the
sewer.
power in, fiber's there.
Yeah, 1 mile from municipal sewage.
So you would build the bus garage where the cow barn is, and the sheep barn, and the apartment house, and where the house is on that side, on the left-hand side?
A lot.
Yeah,
Well, when I grew up,
That's where the garage would go on the western side,
again,
yes.
yeah, and this is looking at it from 10,000 feet just because of the cleared
Right.
size. So we haven't mapped out the drawings or the fields on it like we did with the Lakeview campus or the bus garage footprint and the required storage. But we looked at the site to make sure that it was big enough.
It's a beautiful piece of property.
Yeah, I mean, the first pass is always Willowmore.
Yeah.
Right? So this one came in, Thomas sent you a note earlier, the one over at,
Yeah, the commercial property.
commercial, 57 in Westport, too small. And there was another one over there.
It's a lot of slope.
Yeah. Yeah, once we considered where we could go, everything would fit. And there was one more that was,
Where the gas station used to be.
that's one, that came like yesterday, right? Yeah, we haven't looked at it.
That's right.
I have a question about this one, as only looking at it and looking at the size of that property. Is there any possibility to do both things we need, field and bus garage, on one side of that property so that you could sell the rest of it? When you have that much property, you know, it's what, 276 acres, it's 200.
Yeah, I don't, until you do some granular work on that, we were talking about that too, you don't need 250 acres. And it'll come down to cost and topography is part of it, how much.
But a lot of that acreage is Wood Hill. You're not, that's,
Right.
That's what I'm
you're not gonna
not
touch
touch
that.
on, it's feasible.
You know, the bottom line, like everyone we see is, doesn't have legs, right? So based on the soils, where utilities are and other things, the short answer is yes. Now, if you want to look at it, we can take this one a step further and drop the garage on it and try to show where the fields will be. You're probably not going to fit, again, just on one side of the road because of the rocks and the topography. Yes?
The forestry, that 488, that 488,
Forestry?
you mentioned the forest. The 488. It's a forestry program where you save on taxes
I don't know.
and you
You can't get out of it without repaying all of the taxes that have been saved in previous.
That's part of that would be part of the due diligence, the further due diligence. Been waiting for you all night.
That's it enough, as we talked about, I think.
Come on.
Question for you.
Yeah, we got.
Any revenues generated from, say, the sale of the Westport property and the school bus garage, that would go into the general fund of the district? Perpetual?
Yeah, and then you can always move anything you want to your facility, to your capital projects.
Granted, we may not get a ton of money from either, but it will be assets going forward
It's revenue.
that you can use to explain to the public that this will help maybe move on to a bus garage and athletic fields at a more logical time, going along with what Bill and the other folks have been talking about with the, and I'm all for space utilization, and it's a thorn in my side right now, but I'm past that for the most part. So if we go with the addition that we've got planned here and the other works, I think we're probably going to be as close as we can get to making a program that the taxpayer is going to go with. The special ed is what's really kicking us in the butt, room-wise, and I've become much more educated since I've gotten on the committee as to what that all entails. Explaining that to the public, that's going to be a task.
Agreed.
Otherwise, they're just looking at the total number of rooms. We all came here before, they don't know what the state keeps dumping on districts every year to get us to this point.
You have to, I don't know what your counts are, Lee, but if you're running 2 4-1-1 programs, you've got 2 classrooms with 4 kids, you have 8 kids. You have 4 kids in that classroom and 4 kids in that classroom, you don't have a choice.
I think 20 people walking out the front door of stores tomorrow and asking what the 411 program is.
Exactly.
Okay? It's just,
Yeah.
it's not gonna happen, We've got to do the best we can to explain it.
I think if we move that way, we'll do a lot more with it.
Dollars is gonna drive the yes or no vote on this. And anything we can show.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I think the point of talking about that revenue was a down the road conversation, like you said, as opposed to now where you're gonna get, I don't know, do you remember what the Chippy, I don't remember what, he's not on anymore, Josh, is he?
No, he is, I could ask.
Josh, what was the estimate on the chip? Like, that's gonna come. And if it's, I don't know what it is, $300,000 maybe, but still, right? So we already know that, don't go to sleep, okay? We already know $300,000 is almost 4% of the levy in revenue, right there. You know, so I think that is definitely looking at, no question. You can't bake it into this, obviously. Go ahead, please.
I just wanted to, there is no exemption on that property, it doesn't count 480A, you're paying on the full assessment. So if you were to purchase it, you're also going to lose $659,200 worth of taxable value. That's another thing to consider.
Yes, it's always the case. Yeah, you're taking it off the rolls. You are absolutely right.
Someone's tax exempt.
Yeah. But
I'm not suggesting that this factor has anything to do with taking this out of commission necessarily, but one of the things that I don't love about this property is its location and the size of the roads getting to it and the neighborhoods that, high bus traffic would go in and out of. You've got families from other districts that would be coming in to watch athletic events, and to kind of get back to where it is not, in my humble opinion, the smoothest place for there to be.
no, I agree. Yeah, I would agree with that.
We also have the Amish that live on that road too, that the buggies and stuff.
No, it's definitely not ideal.
Live on the cutting.
You know, but like I said, with every rock we have, we're turning over. We're still going back through the list too. But you're never gonna be able to get to a bus garage and fields conversation if you find this property anyway. Let's go back.
Hey, Joe.
Yes.
The Chippy value is $11 million over 30 years.
$500,000 is 22, I was right, about
4 questions and answers. It starts at about $100,000 per year in gross.
And it goes up, it goes up. But that's not definitive, like we said, but it's pretty close. And it certainly wouldn't hurt. Let's think about you really want to be here. As far as timeline goes, especially knowing where you're at with the extra aid. What we could do is, when we come back, you need something, the board needs to act on a recommendation in April. You're gonna push the project out. And we're 99% agreed, I think, on the big picture stuff. Can you, Lee, make a note? Let's, in March, let's go, I want to go through every room. Tell Josh, you guys go through every room and let's talk through every room. Right, like that. And then we're not going to get into sections and all these other things, but to say, clear up. This room is used for this. This room is used for this. But I don't want to get into, well, this person maybe this and it. This is what the administration is saying we need to be able to have, which we really have on there. But if it will help carry water, then let's go through the entire, head to toe through the whole exercise. So we can come back in March and do that, yes.
How many shots do we have in the vote?
I'm sorry.
How many shots do we have for a vote? If this one goes down, then we have 2.
You can come back again, yep.
Two more after this next.
Well, if you come back with the same project, but you gotta remember, you're voting 26, right? And remember, what we say the cutoff was 28? And what do you come back with?
You have to have a referendum before the expiration or building permit?
Just a referendum, as far as I know.
Before the expiration.
Yeah, but upon approval, you're gonna get the permit to stay that to an approved product. You'll get the permission.
At the last meeting, Joe, did you give the committee a rough idea of the cost of the new ball field and West Garage?
Yes, we did. We were always talking, it's 4 and change on the garage, which is fully aided, and we were saying 3 million plus or minus on fields. But that doesn't include land and everything else.
So about 3.5 million?
Take the garage out of it, call the fields 3.5. It's gonna be between the 4, but it depends on the, it's really gonna be driven by site.
About 3.5 to 4 million. About 5,000 square foot West Garage and 4 ball field.
No, the garage is 4, it's in the January presentation. The garage was 4 and change, I don't remember. Do you remember
I think
offhand?
we carried $5 million for the garage.
We carried 5 for the garage, we carried 3 for the fields, right?
Yeah, and then the garage would be aid eligible because we're building it to the appropriate size. We're not adding the storage and all that.
Right. So the garage would be 4. The fields are on, the real cost is the fields. Cost is in the fields.
I think that's the comment we were getting at earlier, what else do we have to think about in addition to?
And really, to that point, if you did 4 million in fields, you're 5.66, as we stand now on the levy. Your levy's gotta go up next year.
Another 5.6.
Yeah, another 5.6. I mean, this floor,
You're around 11.
right? So if we did another, this is, 4 million. You did another, 3.7. You did another 3.7, you're 5.6. All the things with what we have. And again, these are all to the point of the woman in the audience raised, right? This is just illustrative about understanding scope and size of where things are at. But I think the good point is, if you go back, what do you go back with? And this is not, it's still, because it's so expensive, a $31 million project. I mean, it's not like that it's not going to be done 5 years from now. It'll be done.
Are there any other locations you guys found for fields or?
Throw a van. Best site around. No question. Wrong project, wrong place, wrong time. Look, it is what it is,
So
right?
is that why you're thinking separate vote on that and then maybe?
For the fields?
Yeah.
No, I think you'll never get this done if we try to find the failure. We're only doing it in 2 parts because you gotta move,
Yeah.
you gotta move this, or you're gonna miss everywhere though. And then you gotta go hard on the garage thing, so maybe the next year you can vote that the following year.
And if we didn't do anything with athletic, what if we just built a new garage right where that garage was?
We can look at that too. There's not a lot of space there. Then there's bus storage, which was always part of the question too. I don't have all the history of that. I'd have to look closer at it. But you gotta level that. The problem is you got hazmat, DC. I mean, that's a, well, how old is that, 100-year-old building, '30s maybe? Yeah.
Environmental.
Oh,
The
they're
environmental survey in preparation for selling the property is going to be
brutal,
This almost has to hang on.
brutal. Unless somebody wants it that bad, they want to do all that
Yes,
work.
they want to pay for it.
Yeah, but other than that, no, seriously, but imagine the oil, I mean, I can't even imagine.
So if we put a same bus garage there, there's still a space issue, but then we still don't address the fields. And we
You still don't address the fields.
Still have the same thing we have now. So basically, we're looking at it, the fields are costing another 6%.
If that's what the number is.
Yeah.
The fields will cost you, every time it's 83, to generate $83,000 right now, on an $8.3 million levy, that's 1%. Right, so if it's 6 million out of pocket, was 7 times 8 is 56, that's 7%.
I mean, people aren't gonna want to spend.
Even if it was
7%,
7 to 13, you're still way under, I think, what was this, 20? Yeah, I mean, even if you did 7%, you're still 11% from where you started. Not to make that comparison, but when you look at the scale of everything, that's a big number, the big number.
people aren't gonna wanna vote for a tax increase of 7% tax levy for just athletic fields. I mean, that's.
You know, it's tough. Like I said, 1% generates $83,000. Right, 1% in Salem generates $30,000. 1% in Saratoga generates 1.3 million. Right, it's all relative. You know, that's why we always used to laugh in the big, Saratoga, we're only going up 1.5 points. It's $1.8 million. I was going up 1.5 points in Boston Spa, was still better, it was $400,000. But still, to make that where he is, I'm going up 5.
Is there someone that can formally contact the town about the golf course?
I don't know, we could look at it.
I mean, has anyone, people talk about it, no one's actually talked to people on the board.
We could look at it as part 2.
Like, what does it actually require? Yeah, but I think someone from you guys needs to contact the board or something. I mean, I don't know where that contact comes from.
I don't know, we were talking to Josh about it, you have to.
Because I mean, honestly, you rebuilt the bus garage there, if the town voted to switch that property over, I mean.
To build a bus garage and fields over there.
Yeah, or build the bus garage where it is, and build your fields there. I mean, but you'd have to have the town vote on it. I mean, that's ultimately.
Yeah, it's gonna be, in the list of priorities, you gotta come with something here to get it across the finish line, and you gotta get a recommendation to the board about the constraints, so you can have this vote next spring. Or otherwise you're kicking it. And I will draft some language and some stuff just to share with everybody, so we can maybe agree on what some constraints might look at. And I think it might have to allude to using your MCA as your guide. Right, kind of like how we did in build this in April, and it's got to be presented to the board, and they say got to move so we can start, we got 6 months of work. If you want to go there. But I think it's the most viable. It does what you need to do. It's not glamorous, but to everybody's point who's not here now, it's not a glamorous position either. But I think when you look at where you were, I really make this, look back and look at where you started, where you are now, you never do keep yourself. Not doing homework. But look at that.
So in the last couple of meetings, towards the end of the meeting, we made some pretty crucial decisions that brought some consensus and some decisions helping us move forward. Even though we've been a little muddled down today in a few details, are there any wish list questions or votes that you would like to see us be taking, or decisions made is there anything what is next?
Here's what I think is next.
Going forward.
We need to generate a greater level of comfort around this room now. And until, but my biggest concern is, like it's always the case, are you still dealing with, I'll tell you the grass is green, and no matter how you're still gonna say it's purple, the grass will always be purple. Right, so I also don't want to end up in a rabbit hole too but if you think it's important to you, we'll do the whole drill to make sure everyone understands and can go to bat for that. But I also don't want to be in a place where it's not the committee's judge and say, well, maybe we should do that in that room, or maybe we should do that. It's the administration saying, this is how we run our academic program. And this is what we need to do. Right, so I think Lee, make a note for that, or Zach did that, with the conversation when Josh gets back, with Lee or Josh together, walk through that. As long as we don't bog down about, well, if this, and this person all used over there, and then in the morning, this one can, like, we're not gonna get into that. This is the administration saying, which they did when we did thrall. We're using all of that information when we did this. Right, and that was the spaces they determined that they needed. All we did was carry it forward. So we can walk through all of those pieces again. I think we should do. But to your point, like last time we agreed we would go down this road. I don't think there's any decision part of it now, because we're on the path. If everybody agrees with that, And it's really gonna come down to March, and I'll draft up some ideas of how you want to, when does the board meet? When are your meetings?
Second, usually the second Thursday of the month.
So if we meet, it's my advice not to push it out further, looking at our calendar. And if we could agree to that, I think we can get to that place in March, fine, but if we don't, we'll push it out. So we meet on March 27th. Board second Thursday, you said that? Yeah, so the board meets on April 10th. I'm sure you can get us on the agenda if we're gonna move something into that 2-week window, we'll be able to make that. If we don't, go to May, it's another month, fine. But I also think we've covered all the bases. This was really the last piece. I think Dave, we said we were gonna talk money, he was like, what is it really in nuts and bolts? These aren't the kind, this is committee work. This isn't stuff that goes over, this is for us to think about what impact is. Because in January, you gotta run all the real stuff. And when it's different, I'm telling you right now, I'll go to my grave saying I'm standing here, that these are the estimates based on what we had and what I got off the budget newsletter. Everybody got to have my back on that. Because I know how it goes. That guy was here and said.
I think there's just some people in the committee that want to be able to justify to the public, we need 16 more.
And we will do that. And then when you, yeah,
Exactly.
if that is going to help,
But be able to answer to the people who are questioning us. Why that? Why is that?
no, so we'll focus on that conversation, but it's really gonna be about talking about what our academic program is. And this is where it goes. This is how it gets plugged in. So your point, I don't think decision-wise, I think it's been made for this path, and it's just gonna be more of this next time. And I'll get some ideas out formally about how you might wanna raise things. But there's no question, you're coming back for the fields of the garage.
Now, we're looking at that as a separate vote. I mean, obviously, the location is probably gonna be another thing where.
Yeah, it's gonna be dependent on all that, and really, it's about priorities, you have to do this. You don't wanna continue to go on, who knows what's gonna happen. In the meantime, we're talking 4 years from now, we have to put more money in the Lakeview.
But that's something we're gonna continue talking about, is the field bus garage.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
The
Absolutely.
educational part of it, the marketing and development part of it, like, there's these years, but like, again, I can see it now, it's very simple, we're gonna go out there and look for more money, right, to do what we have to do crucially here, and then a few months later, go back, it's like, the amount of misinformation, and I just feel like we really still gotta dig deep on how we're going to get these messages across once we're all convinced that this is something that we're doing, right? You're the one that said it right in the first meeting, you're like, you can either care about what other people think, or you can go about just doing your business, because people are always gonna think what they're gonna think.
Right. And the good news is we have, like, we start moving forward in April, we'll start getting material, like, they gotta do all the work, and by January, we'll know. But we can spend that time thinking about the materials and how we wanna approach it. And I don't know how many, I know you did one meeting in was there one meeting in January? That's the deck I have. In terms of the public, the big referendum meeting, I didn't see any other decks. I know the committee did work on that. But how much work are we doing on the ground throughout the entire community everywhere? The coffee clutches, are the people we can meet with, are there other folks we can talk to? I don't know that. But that's really important, and again, in my experience, and every community is different, but, and I don't know, I'm gonna pretend and lie that I know about your community beyond the stuff that I've done here. Is there Rotary? Is there, what else is there where people, there's community centers, there's seniors, right? What are the spaces people are at where we can go to help do that too? Go ahead.
Would it make that much of a difference if we backed it up a couple months and looked into in depth the athletic fields in the garage, parcel of land, did some more talking with townspeople, who explored the different, the website, parcel of land that I sent to you, and also the one that you were talking about on Foxville Road, so that we can narrow it down and put it all as one vote rather than just.
You want to go 15, 16%?
Yeah, that's something.
Personally, not after what we went through last, I mean, this is all been about trying to help, not just what we're talking about right now. At a minimum, you're double, right? Again, just from my quick conversation, which, you know, people have raised. If it's 4 million, you're gonna double 5.66, which is 5.7, which is 10, which is 11.4.
But then
And that's not buying the land, that's not doing anything else.
And then you have the people that won't agree on where it's going and how it's.
And it could take us, it could take us 2 years to find, it could take another year to find a parcel.
We also could explore it and decide where we want to put it and could they be 2 separate votes at the same time? If we had all the information and things decided?
I don't like that, Cal, only because you really want fields and a bus garage and not fix your school.
Right, so.
Okay, yeah.
Good point.
So one.
Right, that's what, you know, so all the sports teams show up, right, and we still have classes in the basement, right? And it's happened, not personally, but I know where people have. Or they do vice versa, like if you were coming out really heavy, you carry with the athletic.
I mean, people may, when they vote on that, the first part, I mean, they may still want to know what are we gonna do about this?
And I think that's gotta be part of the recommendation of the board, and the rest of the piece is like, there's about the long-term part. Part of your long-term charges, the garage and the fields are not settled, nowhere to put them. But we do know it's not gonna work for the cost of Lakeview and on top of everything else, you're further ahead, again, which I think we said that is trying to sell it. But I feel like that's where we're at, to continue to work through that and to get to a recommendation. My recommendation to you is I wouldn't want to lose more time. Because it's the old, what's the name of it? It's not Atkins razor, Parkinson's law, that work fills the space that it takes, right? So if we say April to May, we say, no, we'll go to June, right? I would say, I need that by Tuesday, I can't do it by, I need that by Friday. They tell somebody, I can't do it by Friday, it's never gonna happen. Sure it is, how about Tuesday? Because the space you have to do is you'll get it done. So I think we need to hold ourselves to get this something, get it out the door. Because you're gonna get the planning, like Tyler said before, you know, we don't wanna be lined up behind 1,000 projects. You know, it's gonna be bad enough going up in the fall with the preliminary.
Maybe change the names of the renovation models from, you know, instead of limited, call it the $31 million renovation into $45 million.
Oh, yeah, no question. Again, this is just for us and understanding what we've been.
Because those don't sound like there's much difference.
You know, and then part of that communication, once it's done, is this full list of everything you're gonna do. You know, go ahead.
When you talked about the idea of, I'm assuming you want to tell the rest of the school, well, did you guys talk about possibly subdividing that land and keeping open fields or athletic fields and building a bus garage?
We dropped it all out. That's that.
I'm sorry,
Those drawings are in the January presentation.
I did see those,
Building had to be demoed to be able to fit everything.
to fit it.
Yeah, the whole thing had, we couldn't keep it, yeah. Yeah.
A lot of grading there too.
Yeah, the graders, you know, the grade in the back is brutal, tons of fill, and cut and fill, tons of cut and fill. And we'd have to take up the best part of Jimmy now to be able to fit everything.
If we need softball, baseball, I'm sorry.
Good soccer, yeah. Yes, sir.
Is there something about using the Dudley field?
I don't know what the W field is. That's where we currently are.
All over Westport, Camp Dudley Fields.
Well, that's why I kind of said this is a tier 2 problem, because we've been using the field forever and will continue to. It's not the best option looking ahead, but that's why we probably still
Well,
want to
the
try to
fields
solve.
are the best.
But,
They're the best
but
fields.
Sheldon, the issue with Dudley is that there is no guarantee. that it
Well,
will continue.
Maybe we just get it
Pursue
Yeah, I mean, Dudley has been, like, every time Dudley has shown up at the table, they've been unbelievably generous and incredibly supportive. And I don't think it's I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility if we approach them and said, hey, could we get some kind of commitment from you for X amount of years? I can't imagine it.
How long have you been there? A long time, right?
a long time.
Yeah. And there was no,
Now, they're not, it's not the greatest thing. There's a lot of transportation problems. But most of the other things we're talking about would have the same problems.
right.
I mean,
Well,
there
the thing
are practice fields that are available, they're not maybe great for a game, but
Yeah, that was part of, there was a parcel over there, and it's like, well, why would I look at a parcel that's a half mile from where you are right now? It's not gonna do anything to help transportation or anything else, it's.
I mean, I would talk to people, probably myself, and, just sound them out. Well, I think that if we could get a long-term commitment, and, they knew what they were gonna get to, I think it might be, something for some, it's not gonna cost anything.
I think it would be very supportive of it. They're always looking for ways to.
I mean, I've already talked to some of the people before, so.
Yeah, we'll raise it with Josh when he gets back. Like I said, that's why it's a problem. We don't have to mix up with any of this, because we don't have to solve it. Especially since you have a relationship with them, and maybe that long-term conversation is part of it.
Is there both baseball and softball fields as well?
Yeah.
But those fields have never been used for high school games.
Correct.
Soccer,
Yes, sir.
Yes,
thus far.
But they do have,
Yeah.
there's space for it. And I heard that it gets into the season.
I mean, I think you have to work out.
Here, you gotta have the conversation. I think you're spot on. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Before the referendum last year, the committee, I think, talked to people, Dudley, and they only one man. Between Dudley and Main Road, generally flat and open, that they were willing to consider the idea of letting us build more ball fields there that we could share. In addition to the fields that they already have.
That makes good sense. And then maybe we do some renovations to what's there, or some other stuff.
They have more land.
Yeah, there's a,
Yeah, they bought.
they bought the farm.
They got 50 farm, okay,
They take over the board.
So specifically, the chunk that's on Route 22, next to John Giroux's house, was talked about in a bigger conversation of partnership with the school district and the camp that would be reciprocal in nature, and that there would be assets that the school would have.
Absolutely.
That would share.
There's that win-win all over.
With the camp. And there would be assets that the camp had that they would share with the school. And that was discussed and bantered around for the better part of 4 to 6 weeks, on and off. And it actually held us up a little bit. And then in the end, at that particular time, if I'm not mistaken, and please jump in and everyone else is there, is the location being so far south of the district in an area where there was so few students and families of students, the conversation stopped. I don't know as though, and I do not believe that they are unwilling to continue the conversation. I do not believe that at all. I just know that the committee had put a halt to it at the time because there was a determination that there wasn't really a necessarily.
Yeah, it's almost really interesting. What's the problem we're trying to solve? If the problem you're trying to solve is to be centrally located, it's not gonna work when you're not gonna have the conversation. You're doing what we're doing right now, trying to find something centrally located. If it's You know, can we get some more fields, and do some other things in the space we're in, where we don't care if it's centrally located? It's a different time. Now, this is, again, and Josh is here to speak for whoever, I'm not gonna speak for anybody in the administration. But just at face value, that's a different conversation, because it's a different problem. But it sounds like before, well, you move to the whole site to do everything anyway. But if something like that happened, finding a place for a bus drive, life becomes a lot easier, like plopping one of, I don't know how many options there are.
Yeah, we ruled that out as a school site.
Right,
So far south.
No, yeah, it's definitely not a conversation about athletic fields and bus garage. It was about
Everything, right. Yeah, and I know that it is, my understanding, it's inconvenient, it's a run to get the kids out there, there's no question. There's no question.
I
But,
know that Josh's concern with that site now is the distance from here. And that it makes it impossible, kids can either stay for extra help or they can practice, but they can't do both.
you can't do both, you're leaving right away, yeah. No, like I said, I think you solved, when you did that before, the problem you're trying to solve is to get something centrally located. And that's the same one we're trying to do now, and just parlay it with the garage. But, to your point,
they're flat. And it's on a main road, there's like this really interesting things
and
about
what
it.
would the scale of investment look like in a partnership with them too? Right, all of a sudden, it changes the entire conversation if you don't want to solve the problem of having to go far. We'll talk about it internally, but, you know, like everything, there's pros and cons with everything, but I know the travel was, it's a problem. You know, but is the travel less of a problem? If you've already got that site, you put a little money into it, you do some, right? $2 million project, facelift everything, and add some more fields. They got lights there? You put lights in, or I don't know what the regs are, I don't remember, I know the municipality or anything like that, there's a lot of rules. You do some other stuff, I don't know, but you're also driving a car. I don't want to co-mingle that, we'll keep that as a parallel conversation, but we need to burn this bridge first, and we need to do it next month. So we'll do a head-to-toe building, so everybody can understand the program part of how we do it. Not to opine on it, but how we have to do it based on what's required.
That'll be a screen presentation.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get to that, we'll put it on the exhibit report.
We've got massive public individuals here to witness it, take the word out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. You know, I wish there was more on all this for you, for the community, but you're not in a place that, I don't think you're also going with my assessment, I don't think you're in a place to do it, which is why I'm working so hard to try to keep it here. If that makes sense. Because we want to succeed, we want to be successful, obviously. We're not doing more than what we need. This is the want list is, but as long as you talk to staff and do these other things, there's no want list. Same conversation you have with your kids, right? I know I do. Not the want list in my house. Okay, so we'll do that in March. I'll draft up some other conceptual ideas, get you ahead of time, chew on, about the guideline recommendations that you would make, but in my head, I'm just going through, you want to use this thing as a guide, because we don't know where it's going to come out. And you don't know where the MCAs are going to ultimately fall once the state looks at it, but you're going to use that as a guide. Is a little more maybe, is it here, maybe? But that maximizes your investment, right? It changes it to a financial conversation where every penny you're doing, you're getting everything you can for it. And you really are. I mean, it gets a what, 30, I can't remember, 30, 34, 4, $35 million project that's costing you $470,000 a year. It's pretty good bargain. Because of the aid. Everybody go with that? You on these things in the short term? We'll keep kicking the line, we don't want to, we're going to continue with the energy to get here to get to a good place. But I do think, and we'll have an internal conversation about it. Again, I think we really just kind of what's the problem. If the problem is you don't want to be there, the solution is you got to be somewhere else in terms of fields, right? But if the problem is not that, then the solution is be there. But if it's you got to be out of there, then it's off the table, you got to look somewhere else, which we've been doing. Okay? But thank you for your hard work. Appreciate it.
Good night, Mike. Good night, Paul.
Which is your favorite? You must have.